Wise Guys Cooking. Mike Kalana 71474755670. What's his name? DeSalvo. Let's welcome the alternative world of famous Italian linguist Frank. I'll never forget what's her name Monteforte. Frank. Thanks, I appreciate you having me on. I'm drawing a blank. What's your name? DeSalvo. Just call me you know who. And my partner you know who. Frank. I'm glad we got that straightened out. You know, I was just thinking of whatchamacallit? DeSalvo. Whatchamacallit? Frank. Whatever. I always have a problem with you. What's his name? Looking at Larry. DeSalvo. You've met him many times. Frank. His wife, who will remain nameless, calls him that so-and-so. DeSalvo. You mean what's her name? Frank. Let's just call her Jane Doe for now. DeSalvo. Jane Doe? Frank. I was at a party 2 weeks ago. I introduced my wife to a friend. I said this is my wife for 42 years, or was it 50? I don't know, I forgot her name. DeSalvo. You certainly have trouble with your memory. Frank. The only time I remember our anniversary is when she throws rice at me. DeSalvo. How long has it been? Frank. I don't remember. I'm not only forgetting things completely, it's remembering that I forgot to remember some things that I forgot. DeSalvo. That's a bad sign. Frank. Hey, I'll tell you how bad it's got. This morning I forgot why I walked into the bathroom. DeSalvo. You have to see someone about this problem. Frank. I know, Frank, my memory is so bad I forgot what the bear did in the woods. DeSalvo. What bear? Frank. I don't know. My wife asked me about our marriage. She said, Frank, if you had it do all over again, would you? I said, would I do what? DeSalvo. How about your memory class? Frank. My memory class is the worst. We had an Easter egg hunt, and I forgot where I hid the eggs. DeSalvo. It's been fun going down memory lane. Before we forget, we have to go to a short commercial. Wise Guys Cooking Broker English Mike Kalana 7475670. DeSalvo. Our special guest today, Michael Frank the Mouth Monteforte, a world-renowned wordsmith, will teach us the art of broken English. Let's welcome Michael Frank the Mouth Monteforte. Frank the Mouth Monteforte. Thank you, Frank and Larry. I'm happy to be with you guys today. Use is a colloquial word that has taken off since the Statue of Liberty welcomed Italians from the old country. DeSalvo. Use guys. We used it a lot when we were kids. Use guys, it has a flow about it. Frank the Mouth Monteforte. Frank and Larry. Another word used in parts of neighborhoods in and around cities like New York and Chicago is ax me. DeSalvo. I've noticed when some receptionists answers the phone they say, shall I ax who's calling? Frank the Mouth Monteforte. I'm afraid, Frank, that's true. But most folks from the old country had picked up words that don't make sense today. DeSalvo. How's that? Frank the Mouth Monteforte. For instance, Italians use lots of sign language. If you're Sicilian and want to insult someone, you take your thumb, place it in the roof of your mouth and flick it forward. DeSalvo. That's dangerous. Frank the Mouth Monteforte. Dangerous? That expression is history. You could lose your upper bridge if you had a set of false teeth. DeSalvo. Not a pretty sight. Frank the Mouth Monteforte. I've seen it happen. An old friend of mine got into an argument with his wife and forgot his upper bridge was loose, made this hand gesture, and his teeth flew into his wife's spaghetti and meatballs. DeSalvo. What happened after that? Frank the Mouth Monteforte. The bridge bit into his wife's homemade meatballs, and pasta sauce flew all over the kitchen table. DeSalvo. Any other gestures that won't get us sick to our stomach? Frank the Mouth Monteforte. Another very dangerous gesture has danger written all over it. You take the white of the hand, place it inside the mouth with clenched teeth. De Salvo. Show us. Frank the Mouth Montefort. Here again, if you're really upset with someone and remove your hand from your clenched upper and lower false teeth, they'll fly out of your mouth. I saw a man argue with his buddy. He forgot that polyglue stuff. His teeth shot out of his mouth and wound up clenching his friend's nose. De Salvo. Not a pretty sight. Frank the Mouth Montefort. Another popular hand expression is placing the back of your hand under your chin and quickly moving it forward, like this. Which means go forth and multiply. De Salvo. Lots of history behind that move. Frank the Mouth Montefort. As a matter of fact, Frank, I was in the middle of a conversation with a little old man from India. I noticed he was chewing on some little Indian nuts. De Salvo. Indian nuts. Frank the Mouth Montefort. They're about the size of an almond. He was chewing away, and he went to make a point. Frank, my mouth was slightly open, and would you believe it, one small chopped nut flew right into my mouth. De Salvo. Then what? Frank the Mouth Montefort. I showed respect to the little old Indian man. I stopped breathing for a little over 1 minute. I was starting to turn blue. The nut was stuck in my throat. I was making a funny little sound, like this since I couldn't get the nut unstuck. I finally excused myself, went to the bathroom, and proceeded to lose my lunch. You know what it's called? De Salvo. We don't need to know. Thanks, I think I'll pass on lunch. Hope to see you soon. De Salvo, CONT'd. Let's hear it for Frank the Mouth Monteforte. Frank Monteforte. Wise Guys Cooking. Written by Mike Kalana. Open. Frank De Salvo. Let's welcome Frank Monteforte. Monteforte. I've been really busy this year looking up my family tree. De Salvo. That sounds interesting. Monteforte. I was checking the attic for newspaper clippings, pictures, and found one of my Aunt Bella Montefort's diaries. De Salvo. I'm afraid to ask. Monteforte. No, Frank, she was a very clever lady. She offered advice about cooking, dressing, and just life in general. For instance, cooking, she was way ahead of her time. You see all these diet commercials on TV telling you what you eat and what you shouldn't eat. Her definition of a balanced diet was hold a cupcake in each hand. She was ahead of her time. She always wondered, if you're not supposed to eat at night, why is there a light bulb in the refrigerator? She once said, I don't need a hairstylist, my pillow gives me a new hairstyle every morning. She was a wise woman. I remember her telling us when we were kids, Frankie, don't worry if plan A fails. There's 24 more letters in the alphabet. She would always got on my Uncle Alfred. Alfred, you are one lazy man. My uncle would say, I'm not lazy, leave me alone, I'm just very relaxed. Uncle Al would tell her doing nothing is very hard, you never when you're done. I could just go on and on. My favorite was life is short, smile while you still have your teeth. My aunt, she was a very funny woman. De Salvo. What else have you been doing? Monteforte. Well, I just got back from a pleasure trip. I took my mother-in-law to the airport. I've been spending lots of time with my kids. De Salvo. How about your wife? Monteforte. I don't know what it is between me and wives. You either outlive them or they divorce you. De Salvo. What's your wife's name? Monteforte. It's either Shirley or Maddie. I can't keep track. You know, I've suspected for some time that my wife's been cheating on me. The usual signs. The phone rings. If I answer, the person hangs up. De Salvo. You have to trust her, Frank. Monteforte. Well, she goes out with the girls a lot. I asked her what names were. She said just some girls from my bridge club. You don't know them. So one night I couldn't sleep and waited for her to Come home, around midnight, I decided to hide in the garage behind my golf clubs so I could see the whole street when she arrived home with the so-called girls. DeSalvo. So you hid behind your golf clubs, what happened? Monty Forte. Okay, so I'm hiding behind my golf clubs, and I noticed that the graphite shaft on my driver was cracked right near the club head. DeSalvo. So you found a crack in your graphite shaft. Did you catch your wife with another man? What was your first thought? Did you catch the guy? Monty Forte. My first thought was, can I fix the shaft myself or should I take it back to the golf shop where I bought it? DeSalvo. We'll be right back. Wise Guys Cooking. Mike Kalana 71474756770. Tony Pomponio. The Interview. Wise Guys Cooking Open. DeSalvo. Let's welcome our band leader Tony Pomponio. Tony. Frank, I'm happy to be here. DeSalvo. You were telling me your first big interview here, in this country, was a very interesting experience. Tony. After my first wife left me because I had no money, I tried to get a job with one of the guys my friend said was a big shot, and if I got the job it would pay a lot of money. DeSalvo. He was a big shot? What do you mean? Tony. What I mean is he was a businessman from the west side of Chicago and just got out of jail, but he said the charges against him were false, and that he should have never done jail time. DeSalvo. What was he charged with? Tony. There was a rumor going around that he was smuggling accordions from Italy. I should have known better. DeSalvo. Accordions? Tony. He was a very dapper man, always dressed like he was going somewhere important, like a wedding or a funeral. DeSalvo. What was his name? Tony. I remember it was very unusual. Thinking, his name was Vito B. Flat Facchini. DeSalvo. Vito B. Flat Facchini? Tony. He seemed like a good guy, since you know I play the accordion and B flat is one of my favorite keys. DeSalvo. Go on. Tony. Well, we met in an Italian delicatessen on the south side. It was called Tony Viola's Deli. DeSalvo. Tony Viola's Deli. Tony. I never ate there before. I was very nervous, I figured this was my big break. I could get into the accordion business and make lots of money. DeSalvo. So what happened? Tony. Like I said, I was very nervous. So I needed to relax before B flat walked in. I went to the counter and bought some lifesavers. You know, the ones with the holes, so I popped one in my mouth and started to suck on one. I think it was white peppermint. DeSalvo. A white peppermint lifesaver. Tony. Just then B flat walks in and sees me at the table. This is my big chance, Frank. I'm going to break into big time accordion sales. DeSalvo. I didn't know there was a demand for accordions. Tony. Like I said, I was very nervous. So I introduced myself. If I recall, he had a white shirt with a black tie. Frank, I was very nervous. This was my first interview with someone who was considered a big shot. DeSalvo. So tell us what happened. Tony. Well, I think he liked me, but I think I made a big mistake. DeSalvo. What kind of mistake? Tony. Well, I told Vito B flat that I loved accordions, and I could help him with his business. DeSalvo. Go ahead. Tony. You know, Frank, how you get real nervous and sometime you talk too fast. Well, I was talking so fast, my tongue got caught between my upper front teeth. I tried to slow down, but it was too late. DeSalvo. I'm interested. What happened that was too late? Tony. I said I was talking so fast that my tongue got stuck in the lifesaver hole. As I tried to get it switched around in my mouth, it flew out like a rocket and landed on Vito B flat's beautiful black tie. DeSalvo. No. Tony. Yes, B flat looked at me. He looked at his beautiful black tie, then he looked at me again, and I looked at my lifesaver on his tie, and it began sliding down. DeSalvo. No, Tony, don't tell me. Tony. I'm telling you, Frank. The lifesaver slid down and left a big white streak on his tie. I thought I was dead meat. DeSalvo. Well, did you get the job? Tony. No, I didn't get the job. DeSalvo. Have you seen Vito B. Flat since then? Tony. You know, shortly after my lifesaver incident, I read the newspapers, and there it was a headline that a guy by the name of John No-Nose D. Fonzie was arrested for dumping Vito B. Flat's body in the Chicago River. DeSalvo. The Chicago River? Tony. Yeah, Frank, they found him floating in the river with the black suit, a white shirt with a black tie. The coroner said the stain looked like someone had spit on lifesaver on his tie. Wise guys cooking. Antonio Sanapazzo. DeSalvo. Let's give a big wise guys cooking welcome to one of our old friends, Antonio Sanapazzo. Antonio is the president of the Italian-American UFO Society. How are you, Antonio? Sono. Fine, Frank. Sorry I'm late. I don't know if it was me or my eyes, but I could have sworn I saw large pizzas flying your studio here while I was parking my car. DeSalvo. When did this start? Sono. My wife sent me out for a extra large cheese pizza the other night from Vito's House of Pizza. When I walked out the door, something strange happened. I laid the box of pizza on the hood of my car, went to grab the keys out of my pocket, and I couldn't believe it. The box opened, and pepperoni slices started rising out of my pizza and started circling my car. DeSalvo. Did you call the cops? Sono. Call the cops? They would have thought I was crazy. No, Frank, I didn't call the cops. No, I called my wife. DeSalvo. What did your wife say? Sono. She said I got my sleeping pills mixed up with my cat's medication. DeSalvo. Your cat's medication? Sono. Antonio looks around the room while sitting. Did you see that? DeSalvo. How did this all start? Sono. When I was a baby, back in the day, my mother would put in a crib. I remember like it was yesterday. There was a little merry-go-round gadget swirling around my crib. DeSalvo. I've seen those, they spinning around your crib putting you to sleep. Sono. That's how it all started, Frank. Instead of singing a kitty lullaby, she would be singing do-do-do-do, do-do-do. She would turn the lights off and the merry-go-round would glow in the dark. DeSalvo. Scary. Sono. From that moment as a baby, I've always felt there were aliens following me. DeSalvo. Creatures from outer space. How's your mother now? Sono. I haven't seen her in years. DeSalvo. Years. Sono. Yes, Frank, when I was a little kid, it was nighttime and I saw something strange. It was late and I looked out the window, and something that looked like a flying saucer attempted to land in our backyard. I flew in so fast that the green men's little legs couldn't find the brake pedals. I saw their little legs hanging out trying to stop the flying saucer before they crash landed. DeSalvo. Crash landed in your backyard. Sono. My mother went out to see what the disturbance was. She walked up to the flying saucer, and a little green man asked her to board. DeSalvo. Your mother was invited into the saucer. Sono. That's right, Frank. Gone, she's gone. DeSalvo. How about your father, how's he doing? Sono. He saw the whole thing. He couldn't believe his eyes. DeSalvo. Where's your father now? Sono. He's in a straitjacket somewhere in a home for the mentally disturbed near Milwaukee. DeSalvo. Well, there you have it, folks. Antonio Sanapazzo, thanks for sharing your story with us.